What is going on, traders? Welcome back to the Traveling Trader. Happy Friday to you. Happy Good Friday to those who celebrate. Being that it's Good Friday, that means the equities markets are closed. So I thought we'd spend the video going over Bitcoin and what I think Bitcoin will do on the weekend and why this could be one of the last chances to buy cheap Bitcoin for the long term. Famous last words, I know. However, a very real scenario that could play out. So let us get right into it and look at Bitcoin's chart. Here I have Bitcoin on the 1 day, right? Now, Bitcoin has a lot of resistance factors going against it. And this is what we call confluence, right? When a bunch of indicators are telling you the same thing, you have confluence and you are therefore able to make better trading decisions. We see that Bitcoin is pressed up against the 50 moving average, right? On my chart, it's this orange line here. You also have the resistance of the ascending wedge in this magenta line here, right? So you already have two indicators that this is a heavy resistance zone for Bitcoin. Then we add in the Fibonacci retracement, right? The Fib retracement, which I have here. And you'll see that if you look at the Fib retracement, this is also where the 0.5 Fib level is. So you got the 0.5 Fib level, the 50-day moving average, and the resistance of the ascending triangle all on the same level or around the same level, right? And just above that, and you know, we won't talk about breaking the ascending triangle yet, or the ascending wedge yet, but you know, just above that, you have this resistance cluster too, where the 100 and 200 moving averages are, and the 0.618 Fib level. So hard times ahead for Bitcoin for sure. Now, let us try to add even more data layers to this. All right, so what else do we notice about this chart? Look at the volume, right? So the volume is trending downwards, okay? You see the trending downwards volume. What is happening to the price? The price is trending upwards, right? Let me use the same arrow, the same color arrow there, just to satisfy my OCD. But you see that the price obviously is increasing, right? But we see the decrease in volume. This is definitely not a good sign. And one of the easiest ways to tell whether something is a dead cat bounce or a false breakout or whatever, or a false rally is when you have declining volume and increasing price action, right? And this is, they're almost diametrically opposed here. They're almost increasing and decreasing at the same rate, just based off of the slope of these trend lines. What else do we see? Well, we see the MACD starting, the RSI, sorry, starting to curl downwards, right? The MACD also starting to curl downwards, and you see the slight tapering off on the histogram here. The stochastic RSI, which is a much more sensitive momentum indicator than the previous two, you know, it tends to form these double tops that you see here. And after forming these double tops, we tend to see a decline in price. Just try to match it up with what you see in the price action up top. Now, it could be a temporary decline in price. So as we see here, there's this double top that happened in January. The price did decline, but it eventually increased. So this is a much more sensitive short-term indicator, momentum indicator than the previous two, being the MACD and the RSI. However, bearish signs all around. As a matter of fact, the only thing that's propping up Bitcoin here is the 21 EMA, which on my chart is the white line. That's the only thing that's keeping it there. Well, and the 0.382 Fib level here at around 6,700, which it did touch, and it seems to be bouncing off of for now. All right, what else can we point out? Well, if we take a look at Bitcoin during the weekends, how it's performed, you already know my views. If you've been watching this channel, you already know my views on what Bitcoin is doing with relation to the markets. I believe that Bitcoin and the SP 500 are extremely correlated at the moment. And if you don't believe me, we can actually look at this. So let's just remove some of these indicators so that it's not messy, and let's pull up the S&P 500. So here on my chart, you'll see the S&P 500. Let me just remove these indicators here, or sorry, these trend lines, just because it's messy and we don't like mess. All right, here is the S&P 500 in blue, right? If you look at least since November, you'll see how correlated they are. The S&P 500 is kind of moving in this sideways, slightly increasing gradual range. So is Bitcoin. We get to this hump here, right? This peak here. The S&P 500 starts tanking. Bitcoin starts tanking. We see a bounce in the S&P 500, right? This is when the markets saw a new recent low. You see that same bounce happening on Bitcoin. You see the markets rallying, and you see that same thing happening to Bitcoin. Now, being that there's this correlation, at least especially recently, between the S&P 500 and Bitcoin, well, what happens on the weekend when the markets are closed? Well, if we take a look at this, you'll see that we're approaching, obviously today's Friday, so we're approaching a weekend. You'll see last weekend we were pretty stagnant, right? If you take a look at April 4th and 5th, Saturday and Sunday, we had a 1.8% increase Saturday, 1.2% decrease Sunday. It basically cancels each other out. However, if we take a look at the previous weekends, right? So March 28th and 29th, we have a decline of almost, if you look at Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we actually have a decline of what collectively about 5, 6, 7, 12 to 13% on the weekend prior to last. If we take a look at the previous weekend, so that would be March 21st and 22nd, you have another 7% decline on Bitcoin. We take a look at the previous weekend, that would be March 14th and 15th. You see that Bitcoin had a net decline as well. 7% on Saturday, it gained 3% on Sunday, but still a net decline. So the weekends when the markets are closed don't fare well for Bitcoin, at least in this recent market cycle, which means, and today's Good Friday, and we already saw a drop in Bitcoin falling, like I said, touching that 0.382 fib level. So if this is the extent of the drop for Bitcoin, fine, but we still have all day Saturday and all day Sunday, at least until the futures are start operating again on Sunday night. But if we see a drop here, if Bitcoin falls below the 21 EMA, then really the next logical level down is right here, where you see historical support, right, based on the many candles that have found support here recently. And that's also where the 0.236 fib level is. That's where around 5,800 is. And that would constitute what percentage drop from here? That would constitute about a 15% drop for Bitcoin. So that's a little ambitious in my view. But like I said, a couple weekends ago, we saw a similar drop as well. That was, between 12 and 13%. So not out of line at all. So in between this, I'd be eyeing three levels really. I'd be eyeing the 6,400 level where we saw previous support and resistance, right? So I'd be eyeing this, maybe 6K, and then the 5,800 level as well. And when I say that could be your last chance to get cheap Bitcoin, it really could be, because if we take a look at Bitcoin's CME chart here, and this is funny, like if you've been a long time watcher of this channel, you know that I used to dismiss the CME Gap argument. Now, whether it's a true phenomenon or some sort of self-fulfilling prophecy because everyone's looking at the CME gaps, I don't really care. I just go by data. And the data shows that most CME gaps are filled. The last time I looked, it was somewhere around the 95% range. 95% of all gaps have been filled. So when you look at that data, you'd be a fool or an idiot to just dismiss it based on the idea that it might have been a ridiculous phenomenon to start with. Regardless, it is definitely a real phenomenon. It is there. So, with that said, you expect Bitcoin to fill this. Now, what the CME gaps don't tell you is what time frame Bitcoin will be looking to fill this gap. So we don't know if it's next week or next month, right? You don't know. But based on how the markets are going, if the markets do start recovering and the news cycle regarding the virus continues to get better, then we could easily see a situation where Bitcoin, coming up to the halving and right after the halving starts, goes on to fill this gap here. And the gap starts, technically, if we're using the wick, starts at around 8,400. So it's between 8,400 and 8,800. It's a very plausible scenario here. And this weekend drop could be the last time to collect cheap Bitcoin in anticipation of filling that gap. And then after the halving, I mean, it's all fair game, really. After the halving, the price of Bitcoin could continue to gradually go up, and we could eventually get a decoupling from the tight correlation that we see so far with the S&P 500. And for those that dismiss the tight correlation with the markets, it's right there. This is the blue is the S&P 500 laid over the Bitcoin charts, and you could see that it's following the same exact shape. As a matter of fact, if we did take a look at a chart of the S&P 500, look at Bitcoin's chart here, right? Just imprint that in your memory. Just burn that image in your mind. Look at Bitcoin's chart here and look at the S&P. It's so similar. You have a gradual rally and then a violent drop and then a bounce and an ascending channel. Very close to what's going on here. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Go ahead and smash that like button if you have. Leave a comment if you have a question, agreement, disagreement, or just want to say hi. Leave that in the comment section below. How are you trading Bitcoin? If you want access to the trade alerts, sign up. Link is in the description. We recently had crazy gains. Obviously, you get crypto, you get stocks, you get options. We had insane gains on our stock picks that we picked on March 23rd. 38% up on Nike. Home Depot's up 33% right now. Microsoft is up 21%. Amazon, we bought it a little bit later than the other three, up almost 12% right now. So sign up if you want access to that. Link is in the description. Subscribe to the channel. By the way, I've been looking at the YouTube analytics. A lot of you that are watching are not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Stay safe out there, traders. Peace.